Have you ever felt like your creativity just disappears? Some days it flows effortlessly, other days it's just stuck, you feel uninspired, and you just question everything that you're doing. If so, this video might be for you. The thing about creativity is it's not random. It actually occurs and follows a cycle. And if you understand that cycle, you can work with it, not against it. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tom Sargent. I used to be a full stack engineer, but I transitioned into marketing because I've always been obsessed with creativity, ideas, storytelling, and human behavior. Now I get to explore the intersection between creativity, psychology, marketing, and human behavior, and I'm sharing everything that I learn to help other creators find their voice and build something meaningful. So if you've ever struggled with staying creative, this video will help you understand why and how to keep the ideas flowing. As I said, creativity isn't a straight line, it's a cycle. And this cycle generally has four main identifiable stages. The first is inspiration, then we have ideation, then creation, and then growth. And understanding where you are in the cycle helps you avoid burnout, push through creative blocks, and actually enjoy the process of creating whatever it is that you're working on. To get started, let's start at the beginning, which is ideation. So where does inspiration and where do ideas come from? Well, I've talked about this a bit before in other videos, but it essentially comes from consumption, observation, and absorbing new influences and new parts of ideas, connecting the dots to create something new or something that goes off in a new direction. It's not a bolt of lightning like you would be led to believe. It actually comes from deep discussion, connecting these dots and looking in places that you wouldn't conventionally look, looking outside of your realms of comfort. It comes from different inputs like books, music, film, conversations, different industries, different experiences, and those things come together to form a sort of unique melting pot, a unique recipe for something new that you can apply into whatever it is that you have your passion for. Let me put it into a better example. If you are a digital artist and you create sketches, you will have a particular style and a particular way of doing things, but you might be lacking the inspiration of what to draw. So you start a new TV series or you read a new book, and those characters that you meet or the environments and the landscapes that you see portrayed will slowly work their way into your artwork and your style. And then you might mix that with some music that you listen to or a conversation you have with a friend or the friend themselves. And those styles and inspirations and new ideas all come together to form a new piece of creative art or creative output. And you can do this in any combination, infinite times over, by just absorbing and consuming different media, film, TV, music, books, mixing it with your own style and your own process of working, and mixing it with your real life and your real experiences. There's, like I say, an infinite number of combinations of doing that. And that really is what that first stage is all about. It's really what the inspiration stage is. It's collecting this network and this map of inspiration. And there's a lot of things you can do to help you maintain this absolute melting pot of ideas. You can brainstorm, you can journal, you can keep a list of creative ideas. I like to just basically keep a collection of images and notes and little thoughts and scraps on my phone, kind of like a digital scrapbook, so that I can go back through and see things. And I don't just do it for creative stuff, I do it for, like, you know, how I want to decorate my house, where to go on holiday, recipes. I basically keep this collection. So journaling and mind mapping becomes very useful, and it's nice to sit down every now and then and scroll back through and see, oh, do you remember that thing? I'd forgotten about that thing, and bring it back to the forefront of your mind. Another good idea is to keep a bad ideas list and sort of write down everything, even if it seems terrible or irrational, but some of the worst ideas can really be that little sprinkle on top of a good idea that really brings it to life. Which leads on to the second stage. Inspiration alone is not enough. You need to refine these ideas. So you need to take your collection of different things, different concepts, different experiences and inspiration, and narrow them down to an appropriate amount of collections for a particular idea. This is where having a digital repository is very helpful, because you can literally like bundle those collections together and then label them whatever your new idea is. You might bring all those pieces together as reference images and use them for your new sketch. So you have colors to refer to, you have shapes, you have poses, you have landscapes, etc. And you're turning these sparks of inspirational ideas into actual concepts and collections. And this is where most people get stuck, because it's quite messy. You face this like resistance and this doubt, and it's very easy to stumble at this stage because it can feel kind of overwhelming. It can also be very easy to stay in this stage because you just keep collecting and keep piling things on, and before you know it, you've almost got a list of just everything, and it's too much to deal with. So one of the things that you can do to help you push through is limit yourself to how many different points of inspiration you can bring together. This is kind of like if you were making a recipe, you wouldn't just put all of the ingredients you have in. You would say, okay, I'm gonna have like 1 source of protein, 2 vegetables, you know, herbs, spices, etc. But you're not gonna just put everything in. You have like a limited list. So sometimes when I'm in this stage, I like to say I'm only gonna bring in like 5 of my inspirational ideas that I've catalogued, and then that's going to be my limit. And I can swap them out and chop and change them to see if my ideas change at all. But yeah, I sort of set a limit so that I don't just keep collecting, because you know, I know what I'm like. I will literally end up with 20, 30, 40 reference images, and it will just be like, okay, well, I've just made another massive list. So yeah, one of the hardest parts can be when you're in that ideation stage of limiting yourself. The next stage, which it's arguably one of the easiest stages, but it's one of the things that people fear the most, is the actual creation stage. This is where you sit down and you do the act of making. So if you're cooking, you cook. If you're sketching, you sketch. If you're sculpting, you sculpt, etc. This is the part that you have to learn to fall in love with. As a creative person, you probably already are in love with it in a way, but you will have days where you aren't feeling it and you aren't up to it. And my best advice there is don't force it. Don't force the creativity. It's okay to have off days. It's okay to spend a day, you know, just doom scrolling on your phone, but it shouldn't be like that every day. And one of the ways you can get over that hurdle of it being like that every day is to enjoy the process and make the process as straightforward as possible. But the example I want to give here is literally making these videos. So I've not been making YouTube videos for very long, literally 2 months, I think. I had to make my process of creating these videos as simple as possible. I've tried doing it in the past where I had my phone and I would film it, and then I tried to edit on my phone and export it, and then there was different apps, and I was like, okay, how do I back up the images? You know, it became more complicated than it needed to be. So I kept it as simple as possible. I have a camera, I have a memory card, I have my laptop, and that's it. I try to use as few software pieces as possible, and I don't add in any crazy edits or animations or anything. It's just me, my voice, captions, upload. I keep that process as simple as possible because I want to focus on enjoying the actual point and the topics that I'm trying to talk about. So that's something you can do as well. Just keep your process as simple as possible to begin with. As you learn to love that process, you can then start adding in more complexity and more layers of interesting things. You know, in a few months, I might add in some motion graphics or B-roll or whatever. But for now, it's about me enjoying the process. But yeah, that creativity stage is something that you need to learn to love. And it's really the reason that you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. Which brings us on to the last stage in the creativity cycle, which is growth. This is something that a lot of people forget about, but it's probably the most valuable piece. It's definitely the most valuable in terms of progress, if you want to keep improving. And it's very straightforward. You just have to sit down and look at what you've created objectively, as if you're seeing it for the first time, as if you are a brand new observer, a new viewer on YouTube, person reading a book for the first time, person seeing the art for the first time, person tasting the food for the first time. And you need to sit down and think, okay, what do I like about this? What would I change if I could? What would I do differently next time? And it's that self-reflection that helps you improve, because you can start to understand areas for improvement. But a lot of people forget to do it. They hit publish, they upload, and they go, job done. I no longer need to think about that. which is a bit of a shame because there's so many lessons to be learned in reviewing your own work and retrospectively reflecting on your own work. And once all of that is done, you've pretty much got the whole creativity cycle there. Now, there are lots of reasons that people get stuck, and there are common traps and pitfalls that people fall into. People believe that they have to be consistent, which, you know, is very good for the algorithms, but if you're trying to create for you and not for YouTube or Instagram and to make them more money, consistency is actually not that important. You should be consistent in the way that you think and in your attempts and your collections and stuff. But the output doesn't have to be like rigorous. It's not like, oh, I have to put a YouTube video up every Wednesday or I have to make something every day. That will turn your creative enjoyment into a chore quicker than anything, and you won't want to do it anymore. So remain consistent in your mental approach, but it doesn't necessarily need to be your deliverable, which is something I think people fall into a lot. Another trap people fall into a lot is not recognizing where they are in the creative cycle with a project. Unless you recognize where you are, you can't see what you need to do to get to the next stage. So if you've been working on something for months and it feels like it isn't going anywhere, maybe you're spending too much time in the inspiration or ideation stages, and actually you just need to get started on the creativity. Maybe you're spending too much time in the creative stage and really chasing too much perfection, and really you need to release what you've got and reflect on it and then go again to see if the next version will be better. The real key thing to take away is that this can't be forced. It needs to be nurtured like a plant. You need to recognize where you are in your stage of growth, recognize what you need to add to move to the next stage, and just do that. And it's really all about that balance of input and output. How much time are you spending adding to your inspiration board, ideating, versus actually creating and reflecting? If you can get that balance into a place that works for you, you will be creative for the rest of your life, and you will have infinite number of ideas, and you'll really enjoy what you're doing. The secret to staying creative and mastering this cycle is about understanding when to explore, when to execute, and when to reflect. If you can understand that, you will level up every single time and you will be a creative mastermind. So next time you feel stuck, pause, ask yourself, what phase am I in and what do I need to do to get to the next level? I hope this has been a helpful video. If it has, please subscribe, please like. Everything that you guys do to interact with me makes these videos feel incredible to do, but I'm not going to stop doing them anyway. I promised it to myself. Yeah, so keep making stuff, go out there and make something today, and I will speak to you next time.